Hi, I'm Victoria Julianne,
Hey, I'm Averie Francis.
and we are the hosts of the Counterculture Teen podcast. We are here to inspire a spirit of faith and patriotism in the hearts of young Americans like you.
Stick around. We're about to break cultural norms and champion the next generation of fearless patriots.
Hey everyone, I'm Victoria, your host for the Counterculture Teen podcast today, and I'm really excited to be bringing on my friend and partner, Hannah Grace. Before and after everything else, Hannah Grace is a beloved daughter of the King. Beyond that, she is many other things: a homeschool graduate, student in the Young Writers Workshop, founder of Flame of Faith Publishing, intern at Crown of Beauty magazine, and former managing editor at Skillful Pen Press. Hannah Grace spends much of her time immersed in the world of words. If she's not writing, she's often reading a book or giving feedback on someone else's work. In her writing and in the rest of her life, she's constantly looking for ways to encourage others, inspire change, break expectations, shatter stereotypes, and live out her faith in a way that's relevant and real, all while growing in grace and following God's lead with every step. You can read more from Hannah Grace on her blog, The Grace Space, and we'll leave that link in the comments below. So, Hannah Grace, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Very excited to be here with you all.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So we primarily brought Hannah Grace on here today to talk about her publishing company that she leads called Flame of Faith Publishing. So Hannah Grace, why don't you tell our listeners a bit about why you started Flame of Faith and what you guys stand for?
Absolutely. So I started Flame of Faith Publishing last fall, and I've had this dream of having a publishing company of my own for some time. Honestly, I don't remember when I first had the idea, but I've had it kind of in the back of my mind for a long time. And so last fall, as we all heard the news about when Charlie Kirk was killed, that was a very, one could say, life-changing event for many of us, and that for me, I felt like I needed to do something about it. And the first thing that came to my mind was to publish a book, and specifically an anthology. And I also thought that this would be an incentive of sorts to finally start the publishing company that I dreamed of starting for some time. And I knew that I wanted to publish other people's work, and I could do it on my own, but I didn't want to do it on my own. I wanted to bring others alongside me to help me with it. And so I put out a post on the Young Writers Workshop community to bring together some others that would be interested. And I wanted to give others a chance to participate in this ministry. And it really is a ministry to me, not just a publishing company, but a ministry. And as far as for what we stand for, I would say, like, why start another publishing company, when there's already other publishing companies out there that, and also other publishing companies headed up by young people. Specifically, part of my thought behind it was to have a publishing company that really has a heart for publishing nonfiction, because I feel like there's not a lot of nonfiction young writers out there. I mean, there are, to be sure, but not a lot. And so I wanted to provide a platform for that. And we specifically want to encourage young writers and give them a platform for sharing the messages that God's given them and encouraging other people in their faith as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk was definitely one of the things that inspired us to get CCT started too. That's great to hear that his death has inspired you guys to start this publishing company. So I'm wondering now, what primary message do you and your team hope to spread to the next generation through your work at Flame of Faith and the writing that you publish?
Primarily, I would say our goal is to say that there is a flame of faith in many hearts in our generation, that, it's easy to get this message that there's not very many young people that are interested in Christianity and care about, taking their faith seriously. But first of all, that is there. And there are many young people who are passionate about their faith. And not only that, but they want to write about it and to share about it with others. And to encourage fellow young writers to share that message. and that the things that they would write would help to stir that up in others, and specifically, our readers, and encourage them that they're not alone. We're not the only ones. It can be so easy to feel like, oh, I'm the only one who wants to take my faith seriously, and there's like no one else my age that I know of, like in my area or anything. And just to encourage them that there are other people out there, their age, our age, that want to do that and do take their faith seriously and want to share it with others.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know there's definitely power in knowing that you're not alone, and that aspect of community is very motivating and powerful. So that's a great mission to have. And I'm wondering, what advice would you give to a Christian young person who wants to set an example for those around them, but they aren't sure what gifts or talents they have that God can use?
I love this question. First of all, Victoria, I must say, when you first gave me this list of questions and had this on the list, at first I was like, why is she asking me that question? Like, am I the expert on this? Things like, I'm not. But I was thinking about it some. And so first of all, I would say I would make a distinction between gifts and talents. Now, they can be synonymous, but for our purposes, I'm going to say that they're a little bit different and say that gifts are more spiritual abilities. We read in the Bible about prophecy and teaching and that kind of thing. And talents are more natural abilities like writing or music or sports or that kind of thing. And so I feel like we need to keep that distinction in mind, and that gifts, some of them can be more outward and more obvious, and some of them are more inner. And also with talents, similarly, I feel like we can tend to place priorities on certain talents, and some talents can be considered more, better in some way, or just more popular. Like, for example, music would probably be a talent that if someone's a musician, people are like, oh, you're so cool, but other talents, they might not think of that. So all that to say, if you're not sure what gifts or talents you have that God can use, part of it might be if you're thinking of it too narrowly, if you're only thinking of it in the terms of what popular natural abilities you have. But I would say, first of all, to pay attention to what is already there. What interests do you have, or what are things, even topics that you're interested in, that you think whenever you hear about it, like, oh, I would like to learn more about that. And pay attention to those passions and those things that get you excited, and the things you could talk about for hours on end or listen about for hours on end. And sometimes it might not seem obvious, but sometimes things that interest you in one area can end up leading you toward a gifting in another area. Like for me, I would say that a main talent is writing, but I didn't really discover that until I started pursuing an interest in a different area entirely. And I was pursuing this other area, and I thought, oh, this is what I'm going to be doing. And then I ended up getting into writing as a result of that, and then realized that actually the other topic that I started out on was not what I was going to end up pursuing. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it just wasn't what I was going to end up pursuing, and writing was. And so God can give you these talents, these natural abilities like writing, and then those talents can be a means of expressing the gifts he's given you. So like I would say, I have the gift of encouragement, so I love to encourage people. So writing is a means that I use to do that. And also to listen to others' encouragement, like, those around you, those who know you best, your parents, people in your church, people in your extended family, perhaps. Sometimes other people will see things in you that you don't see in yourself, or maybe you have the potential for it, but you don't realize how well you could do at it if you were given the opportunity to grow in it. And sometimes you just won't discover that you're good at something until you try it. So it can be good to just jump into things, even if it doesn't seem like something you would be interested in at first, and you might find that it turns into something that you end up being good at. So there's that also.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. I love the distinction you made about gifts versus talents, especially about the spiritual gifts that God gives us in accordance to the purpose that He has for each of us. And finally, what would you say as an encouragement to a Christian who is trying to discover their spiritual gifts or grow the gifts that God has given them?
So, first of all, I would just say, remember that you are a gift. This is not just a journey of trying to find what gifts you have that God has given you, but remember that God has created you and made you and given you as a gift to the world. You know, your personality, your history, your story, your perspective, everything that makes you you is valuable and unique and unrepeatable. You know, there's never going to be another person exactly like you. And I know we hear that, but it can be easy to forget that sometimes, but when you really think about it, it's like there's a need in the world that God wants to fill, and He wants you to be a part of that. And that's important to remember. And then also, so that's just kind of general for either way. If you're still like trying to find your gifts, I would kind of go back to what I said earlier about how, sometimes following the path of one pursuit will lead you on to something entirely different. And even if you're not intentionally seeking God's calling by pursuing something, He's still leading you. And that is a major way that I have seen God at work in my life is I call it His often unseen but ever present moment by moment or step by step leading. Because sometimes, I'm just going along my merry way and just doing things and trying new things. And I don't think I'm doing anything particularly like spiritual necessarily. And then I look back and I realize God was guiding me through that, is guiding me even now. And things in the past that I didn't realize what He was doing. When I look back, I'm like, you know what? I can see He was doing something with that. And He was guiding me into this, or He was growing this ability in me. So if you're still seeking your gift and you haven't figured out what it is yet, don't panic. The fact that you have an interest in discovering your gift is a beginning in and of itself. And God is not going to ignore that desire. You have that desire, He's going to guide it. And as long as you're not intentionally going against something that He has clearly said, don't do this, He will be guiding you through it. And then if you are like already growing in your gifts, something I would say, a little tidbit of encouragement, is sometimes it might appear that a gift is submerged for a season. And you might be pursuing something and things are going fine and you think you're going to keep going ahead with it. And then all of a sudden doors start getting closed and you stop going forward, and it can feel like things have just gone stagnant and this gift is lying dormant. And I've had that as well. And you can feel like this dream has died, but chances are, even if it has died, it can be resurrected, but it probably hasn't died. It has probably just gone underground. And I would say I had this with music. So I would say writing is my primary interest and the music is my second. And so I've been playing the piano for about, 10 years roughly, and a little less. But when I first started, I was very eager to do it. I started out doing lessons, and then things started winding down with it. And there was a few years where I didn't touch the piano at all. And I still had an interest, but there weren't opportunities to play, and I wasn't very motivated, and I was just plugging along, and that it was still an interest, but it wasn't something I was actively pursuing. And so it was dormant for that season. And I was like, I'm okay with that. I don't need to keep it on the surface. And then about a year ago, an opportunity came up for me to start playing at my church. And so since then, I've really grown with that. And then another thing tied in with that has been songwriting, which is another interest I've had for some time. And in the past, I've had different ideas about, I could try to write songs with this person or that person, and it didn't pan out. And then a few months ago, I teamed up with a songwriting partner that things have been going quite well with, which, Victoria, I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about. And and that has been great and has really inspired me in that area. But so all that to say, if a gift has gone dormant, that does not mean that it has died. And chances are it probably will be brought back to life at some point in your future. And there were probably reasons why it was not active for a time. And then finally, I would say, as you're plugging along with growing in your gift, if you're going along and learning things and developing, and it feels like everything is just going forward and up, I would say don't forget to enjoy your gift, because sometimes when you're going along and using your gifts, it can be easy to get so caught up in all the details of using the gift that you forget to actually enjoy it. Like writing is very easy to do this with. You start out with this passion to write articles or write stories or write books, and then you get into marketing and branding and publishing and printing and everything that comes with it. And it can be easy to get lost in all the details and forget what got you started writing in the first place. So sometimes, especially to get further along, you just need to stop and go back to the beginning and remember the joy you had at first. To paraphrase, where it says in the Bible to remember the love you had at first. So remember the joy you had at first and remember where you started and go back to that.
Yeah, thank you so much for the encouragement, Hannah Grace. I really like the part where you said just because a gift has gone dormant, it hasn't died. And I think that's something a lot of us need to remember, especially me, because sometimes I get frustrated with God, like, God, I have this, I'm offering you this gift. I have this ability to do something, and it seems like you're not using it. But then, my mom always reminds me there are different seasons in your life, and God will always have a reason for each season that comes into your life. And I really like how you really phrased that in a way that embodied how you can trust God even when your gifts have seemed to gone dormant. Averie, do you have any summary of what Hannah Grace has said here?
Okay, so let's see. So gifts are more spiritual, talents are more natural abilities, which I guess that's a really good differentiation. I think that's how you say it. Some gifts are hidden, some talents are more popular, but that doesn't mean that even if your talent's more niche, it doesn't mean it's not important. If it's like a passion for you, then that's a good thing. And our talents are reflections of His blessing. And that if you want to discover new things, just keep trying new things, keep learning, because you never know if that could be like your spark, it could be your new thing. And remember that you are a gift and you're created by God for the world. And everybody's unique, right? There's no such thing as two of the same people, right?
Yeah, thank you for that, Averie. Especially, we hear a lot of the culture today saying everyone's so unique. And then it begs the question, if everyone's unique, if everyone's special, then really, is anyone special? Like, if everyone's going to be different, then really, is anyone different? But yeah, the Bible says that we are created fearfully and wonderfully, and that we are made in the image of God, and we are something to be valued because Christ died for us. And I'm really excited to be continuing on this partnership with Hannah Grace and the Flame of Faith team and all the wisdom and themes that they have to share with the world. And thank you so much for coming on here today, Hannah Grace. This has been awesome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. Tune in next time for another episode.
If you like this show, be sure to subscribe to our email list below and follow us on Spotify and YouTube.
See y'all soon. And remember, in an age of compromise, it's up to us as Christians to choose to courageously counter culture for Jesus Christ.